Hello and welcome to another exam paper walkthrough. Today we're doing a fantastic best guess or predicted paper from PixiMaths. If you've not already checked out their website, please do. They are a fantastic site for revision, and they've produced some stunning papers so far as their best guesses. And we will do this one. This is the higher tier. This is for paper 3. Today is the 9th of June. So we're a couple of days after the paper. Paper 2 was sat, and they've had a really quick turnaround and produced this lovely paper. Okay, we'll crack on with question 1. Right, so the diagram shows a prism. So front elevation, side elevation. On the centimetre grid below, draw the front elevation and the side elevation of the prism. So we're going to do the front elevation first of all. We've got using a scale of 1 centimetre to 1 metre. So we've got 2 metre by 4 metre by 2 metre, and then a vertex 4 metres high, slap bang in the middle. So I'm going to go 2 squares, 4 across, another 2 squares, and then because I've got my ruler this way around, I'll put the vertex as well. So that's going to be my front elevation. And then I'll do my side elevation at the same time. So from the side, if I'm looking at this image from the side, I would see this rectangle, and then I'd actually see this as a rectangle as well. I wouldn't see the slope height, I would just see it as being 2 above. So let's draw that one on. And this width would be 3 centimetres. So that's the edge that I would see. And then that's kind of the roof or the top edge. Okay, and question 3. So Catherine is making some table decorations. Each decoration is made from a candle and a holder. Caroline buys some candles and some holders, each in packs. There are 30 candles in each pack, 18 holders in each pack. Catherine buys exactly the same number of candles and holders. How many candles and how many packs of holders does Catherine buy? So I'm going to assume I'm after the minimum amount. So I'm after the minimum amount. So on a calculator paper, the easiest way to find the highest common factor of 18 and 30 is to put it in as a fraction and then simplify it. So if I do 18 over 30, that will automatically simplify down to 3/5, which I think is actually going to be the number that we need for each, but we'll come back to that in a second. So the lowest common multiple is going to be made from the numerator of 1 times by the denominator of the other. So the lowest common multiple is going to form numerator of 1 multiplied by the denominator of the other. So I can do 18 times 5, or I could do 30 times by 5. That would give me the same either way, and that's going to be 150. And I've miswritten here. That should have been times by 3. So that should have been 90. Okay, so 90 is the lowest common multiple. So how many of each will that actually mean? So I would need to do 90 divided by 30, which is where I kind of got this 5 from. Where I kind of got this 3 from. So that would be 3. So I would need 3 packs of candles. And I would need 90 divided by 18, which would give me 5. I would need 5 packs of holders. Okay, the next bit of information that Catherine uses all of her candles to make, let's just format that slightly better. Catherine uses all of her candles and her holders. How many table decorations does she make? Well, that's the lowest common multiple that we worked out over here, so that would be 90. Okay, question 3. On the grid, draw the graph of y is equal to x plus 4 from the values of -1 up to x is equal to 3. So I'm going to go from properties of a graph. So I'm going to say that y is equal to mx plus c. So I'm looking for a line with a gradient of 2 and an intercept on the y-axis of other way around, sorry, and a gradient and an intercept on the y-axis of 2. So if I start my graph, it's going to hit here, and for every 1 square across, it will go up 2. So if I insert a line, so I want a line that crosses through all those points, and that's going to be my graph. Okay, and question 4. The diagram below shows a container that is being filled at a constant rate. Below the 3 graphs that represent the height of the water as a function of the volume of water in the container, choose the graph that corresponds to the container of value above. So if we ignore the graphs for now, during the first part of that, that's going to fill, if it's being filled, that will fill at a constant rate. It'll fill quite quickly. So we'll have a straight line to start with, and then as this happens, if it's still filling at the same rate, that's going to slow down. So that's not very well drawn, but that's going to be the middle graph. Okay, question 5. The pie chart shows information about the results of a netball matches that 2 teams have played in over the course of a season. So we've got the Red Lions and the Blue Dolphins. The Red Lions drew 5 matches, so that tells us this section here represents 5 matches. How many did the Red Lions win? So we want to find out how many games 72 degrees would win. Well, you could do this with a ratio table. I would probably do it 45 divided by 5. Gives me the size of each, the angle that each match would represent. So 9% would represent 1 match. So 72 matches would be divided by 9 would be 8 matches. Okay, Celia says the pie chart shows that the Blue Dolphins won more matches than the Red Lions. Is Celia correct? So we're not given any values for the Blue Dolphins, so we have no numerical value to assign to each of these. So we don't know the numbers for the Blue Dolphins. So is Celia correct? We can't tell. Can't tell, as we can't work out how many matches they played. Okay, and question 6. So we've got parallel lines. Find the size of angle X, giving reasons for each stage of your working. Okay, so let's look. So we've got parallel lines. So this line and this angle would actually be a supplementary or co-interior angle. So they'd add up to 180. So I'm going to use that. So I'm going to say 180 minus 42 is going to be equal to 138. So that's my working and then my reason. X forms a supplementary or co-interior, your choice. So I'm going to go co-interior angle with 42 degrees, and they must equal 180 degrees. So at school I find these questions particularly difficult, giving reasons. Being dyslexic, writing the reasons I always found quite difficult. So I always now, as a habit, show my working and then explain it next to. That works for me. Question 7, work out 0.004 times by 0.05 divided by 0.02, giving your answer in standard form. So I'm just going to rely on my calculator. I could convert all of these to standard form, but my calculator is a calculator paper, so I'll let my calculator do most of the work. So times by 0.05, and I want that divided by 0.002. So double check that I've typed that incorrectly. So there we go. So I've used my calc. 1 over 10, which is 0.1, which in standard form would be 1 times 10 to the minus 1. Okay, question 8. So we've got price comparison. 3 boxes of tea available at a supermarket. 240 for £5, 200 for £4, 160 for £3. So I need to find a way to compare them. So I could compare them by the price per tea bag or per quantity of tea bag. So for example, I could work out price of 20 of each of them because they're all multiples of 20. Or alternatively, I could work out how many I can get for a specific price. So I'm going to do it that way. So I'm going to say for box A, I would have 240 divided by 5, which is going to give me 240 divided by 5. I would get 48 bags per pound. For bag B, similar process. I'm going to say 200 divided by 4 is going to give me 50 bags per pound. And then for bag C, same process, 160 divided by 3 gives me 53 1/3 of a bag per pound. So which one is better value? Bag C. Bag C is better value. Right, question 9. So calculate the size of the angle marked with X. You must show your working. So I'm going to rely on my exterior angles. So I'm going to say that the exterior angle of the hexagon is going to be 360 divided by 6. And to that I need to add the exterior angle of the octagon, which is going to be 360 divided by 8. So I'm not going to do stages. I'm just going to type that into my calculator. I've shown my method within the question that I've written there. Just need to make sure I type it in correctly. So when I add them together, that gives me 105. So the size of my angle is going to be 105. Okay, question 10, diagram not drawn accurately. So work out the value of P. So to work out the value of P, we've got one side and an angle, so we haven't got enough information to do that yet. So we're going to have to work out the size of this length. I'll call that X for now. So I'm going to have to use, so in theory, if I knew the length of X, this would be the hypotenuse and this would be the opposite, so I'll be using the sine ratio. And the version I'm trying to work out is the hypotenuse, so P would be equal to the opposite X divided by sine of the angle, so sine 63. And X is going to be equal to, so X is going to be equal to, I'm going to have to use trigonometry for this, so it's going to be equal to 12 squared plus 5 squared, which is going to be 13. We've got Pythagorean triplet there. So P is going to be equal to 13 divided by sine of 63. So that's going to give me 14.5902 ... Oops. ... So it asks for it to 3 significant figures. So to 3 significant figures, that's going to be 14.6. Okay, question 11. So complete the Venn diagram. One of the numbers is, so there we go. So we've got the numbers, the universal set is the numbers 1 to 16, and we're putting multiples of A in set A, multiples of B in set B. So 1 would go there, 2 would go there, 3 would go there, 4 would go there, 5 would go there, 6 would go there, 7 would go there, 8 would go there, 9 would go there, 10 would go there, 11 would go there, 12 would go there, 13 would go there, 14 would go there, 15 would go there, and 16 would go there. Right, one number is selected at random. Write down the probability that A, N, B, so that means A intersection B. So we've got only one number in the intersection, and we've got 16 numbers in total. So 1 out of 16. Okay, for this question, the copy that you've got is a PDF. I converted it into a Word document just because I've got a few more features that I can use in terms of annotating. It should have a dot over the 5 and a dot over the 4. So write this as a fraction in its simplest form. So most of these questions will actually say using algebra. The reason why it says using algebra nowadays is you've got this button on your calculator that actually could do this for you. So what I would type in onto my calculator if I so I've typed it in there as the recurring decimal, and that will automatically convert it to a fraction. But I will do it using algebra. So I start by saying that x is going to be equal to the number, so 3, 5, 4 with the reoccurring pattern there. I'm then going to say then 100x is going to be equal to 100 times by that, so that's going to be equal to 35.454, and I just line up the reoccurring pattern there. So then I would do 99x is going to be the one of them, take away the other, the larger take away the smaller, so that's going to be 35.1, and then I'm going to say, so x is going to be equal to 35.1 divided by 99. My calculator will simplify this for me, but alternatively I can say 351 over 990. They both actually have 9s in common, so 351 divided by 9 would be 39, and 990 divided by 9 would be 110, which is the fraction that we've just shown it is anyway. Okay, question 13. So we've got a frustrum. It is made by removing a small cone from a large cone, as shown in the diagram. So the frustrum is made from glass. The glass has a density of 2.5 grams per centimeter square cubed. Work out the mass of the frustrum. Okay, so we first of all need to work out the volume of the frustrum. So the volume of the frustrum is going to be equal to the area of the full cone minus the area of the small cone. So I'm going to treat it as I'm going to take 1/3 pi out, and then I'm going to say it's going to be equal to the larger radius, so 6 squared h, 6 squared times by 15, minus the frustrum of the smaller one. We do not know at the moment. However, what we can say is, using a scale factor, I should have done this first probably. Just double checking in my head. Yeah, so if we imagine the larger frustrum, which was 12 and 15, that has to be mathematically similar to the smaller one, which would be 5. So it's going to be 3 times as big. So divide by 3. So divide by 3. So it's going to be, the radius would be half of 3, so 1.5. 1.5 squared times by the height of the smaller one, which would be 5. So if we type this into our calculator, this should give it to us. So 1/3 times by pi times by, and we want to do 6 squared times by 15 minus 1.5 squared times by 5. So that should give us 705 over 4. That looks a bit too messy. So here's my mistake. So that was 4. So that should be 2. Silly mistake. So let's just change that. 1.5 to 2. That looks slightly better. So 520 over 3 pi. Right, so we've got the volume of the frustum now. What we need now to do is to work out the density. Well, work out the mass. Density is equal to mass divided by volume. So mass is going to be equal to density times by volume. So I need to take 2.5 times by the volume. So times by 2.5 gives me the value of 1,300 over 3 pi, which as a decimal is going to give me 1,361.35. So to a suitable degree of accuracy, if we think about it, we've got arguably one significant figure, two significant figures, two significant figures, two significant figures. So one more. So realistically, 3 significant figures. So 1,360 grams. Okay, question 14, show that, and we're given this. Whenever I'm expanding brackets, I always tend to keep my easier one for last. Just my personal preference. There's nothing to say you've done it wrong if you haven't. So I'm going to treat it as x plus 1 times by, and then if I expand this bracket, that would give me 6x squared minus 4x plus 3x. So minus 4 plus 3 is minus 1x. And then 2 times by minus 2 would give me minus 2. And then I tend to line these up, just my personal preference. I do like the grid method as well. So if I'm doing 6 times by 6x, that would give me 6x squared. X times by minus x would give me minus x squared. X times by minus 2 would give me minus 2x. And then I'm going to do my second line like I kind of would do multiplication and line up my values. So 1 times by 6x squared would be 6x squared. Minus 1 times minus x would be minus x, and then 1 times minus 2 would be minus 2. So then when I add those together, I'm going to get 6x squared, 6x cubed. I missed my tail off my 3. Minus 5 plus minus 1 plus 6 would give me plus 5x squared, minus 3x, minus 2. Okay, question 15. Jessie did a survey of the number of cups of coffee some teachers in her school had drunk yesterday. Okay, I think I'd be on the kind of the 6th cup. The frequency table shows his results. So work out the number of teachers that Jess asked. So that's going to be the total frequency. So all we're doing is adding this column up. So that's looking like 10, 20, 22. Work out the mean number of coffee. So we need to really times these together and then add them up. So I'm going to say that the sum of x times f is going to be equal to, so let's just do this on the calculator. So 2 times 1 is 2, plus 2 times 3 is 6, plus 4 times 5 is 20, plus 5 times 8 is 40, plus 6 times 5 is 30. Nothing wrong with having done them separately. So 980. So the mean is going to be divided by the number that we're asked. So that's going to be equal to 98 divided by 22. So I'll do that separate sum. 98 divided by 22 is going to be 4.45. so I've made a mistake here. So that should have been 9. So my total was 101. And then 101 divided by 22 is what I was looking for. So 4.59. 590. So that's going to be, I'm going to say 4.59. Okay, question 16. Write x squared plus 4x minus 4 in the form ax all squared plus b. So we're looking at completing the square here. So if we think about, I want to create, I want a pair of brackets that will create my x squared plus 8x. So I would need an x, because that will create another x, and then I have half of this term, so plus 4. So that all squared would give me 8x squared plus 8x plus 16. So I need to take away 16 from that to get just x squared plus 8x, and then I've still got a minus 4. So that's going to be x squared, x plus 4 all squared minus 20. So hence or otherwise, write down the coordinates of the turning point of the graph. So the turning point is going to be the minimum value that x can be. So the minimum value that x could be would be, well, the minimum value that x can have is going to be, if we think about, that's technically not correct language, to create this turning point, I need the very, very smallest that y could be. So the smallest that y could be is when this bracket here is equal to 0. So that would be when x is equal to minus 4. And when x is equal to minus 4, y would be equal to, well, this is actually y. So y would be equal to 0 squared minus 20. So just minus 20. Right, question 17, the diagram shows the triangle ABC. Calculate the area of the triangle ABC correct to 3 significant figures. So 2-mark question implies that it's not too detailed. So we should be able to do it straight from the advanced trig formula for area. So half AB sine C. So in this case, that would be a half of, and it works perfectly, 9 times by 13 times by the sine of 50. And I can just type it in like that. So I'm going to go 0.5 times by 9 times by 13 times by sine of the angle, which is 50. So I get 44.8135 ... to imply I haven't rounded yet. And then to 3 significant figures, that's going to be 44.8. Okay, part B, calculate the length of AB. So the length of AB is this length here, so it is arguably C. I'm going to rearrange my letters there just because A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cos A. So for this case, that would be 9 squared plus 13 squared minus 2 lots of 9 times 13 times by cos of the angle, which was 60. Was it 60? 50. Okay, so A squared is going to be equal to 9 squared plus 13 squared minus 2 times 9 times 13 times by cos of the angle. So that's going to give me 99.587 ... So A is going to be equal to the square root of that. So we're looking just under 10. 9.979 ... So to 3 significant figures, that's going to be 9.98. Okay, question 18. A circle has the equation x squared plus y squared is equal to 5. Write down Write down the coordinates of the centre of the circle. Well, the centre of the circle has to be 0, 0. Write down the exact value of the radius. So for a typical circle, just to explain this in a bit more detail, so that's technically the equation of a circle, and this is our centre point, so that's 0, 0. So the radius is going to be equal to the square root of 5. So root 5 is the exact value. The point P is the point 1 minus 2 is on the circle. X squared plus 5y is equal to 5. Work out the equation of the tangent to the circle at P. So to do this, I need to work out the gradient of, so if I kind of imagine helping a sketch to help me, very rough sketch obviously. So we've got 5. We've got a point of 1 minus 2, so we're looking at kind of so we're going to start by working out the gradient of that line. So we want to work out the gradient between the 2 points 1 minus 2 and 0, 0. So the y has changed by minus 2 and the x has changed by 1. So the gradient of the radius is minus 2. That means that the gradient of the tangent, so that's this line here, which creates a perpendicular line, is going to be the negative reciprocal of that. So the gradient of the tangent, I'll call that mt, is going to be equal to 1/2. So now we're nearly there. We can say that y is equal to 1/2 x plus c, and we know that it passes through the point 1 minus 2. So minus 2 has to be equal to 1/2 plus c. So c is going to be equal to minus 1.5 or minus 1.5. So a form that we can give it in is y is equal to 1/2 x minus 1.5. Sorry, minus 2.5. So 2 minus 1/2 is 2.5 minus 2.5. There are other forms that we could have. We could, for example, multiply it all through by 2 and say 2y is equal to x minus 5, or any rearrangement of that. Okay, question 19. A virus on a computer is causing an error. An antivirus program is run to remove these errors. An estimate for the number of errors at the end of t hours is 106 times by 2 to the minus t. Work out an estimate for the number of errors on the computer at the end of 3 hours. So I'm going to do 106 times by 2 to the power minus 3. So it's going to be the same as divide by 8, I think. So, but anyway, 106 times by 2 to the power minus 3 gives me 13.325. So an estimate for the number of errors on the computer at the end of the 3 hours. So we would estimate that to 13 errors. Explain whether the number of errors on this computer ever reaches 0. So no. No. As 2 to the power minus t can never be 0. Okay, question 20. Clive wants to estimate the number of bees in a beehive. Clive catches 50 bees from the beehive. He marks each bee with a die. He then lets the bees go. The next day, Clive catches 40 bees from the beehive. 8 of the bees have been marked with a die. Work out an estimate for the number of bees in the beehive. So we're looking at capture, recapture. I tend to do this always as out of the whole population, he caught 50. And then next time, out of the 40 that he caught, 8 was still containing die. Technically, well, more common, you tend to put your fractions the other way around, but it just makes it simpler rearrangement. So 40 times by 50 divided by 8 is going to be 2000 divided by 8. So that's going to be 250. 40 times by 50 divided by 8, 250. So we would estimate that there are 250 bees in the hive. Write down the assumption that you've made. So the assumption that I've made is no dyes have been rubbed off the bees. So no dye. Just checking my spelling of dye. Going for the wrong one. D-Y-E. Dye has come off any bees. We could also mention that probability of catching the bees is the same both times, or that if you kind of view it that probability of catching bees is the same each time. Probability of catching bees from the same sample. So a typical example of that is you're assuming that all the bees are coming out. I would go for no bees has come off with any of the bees, but you could talk about the fact that they're thoroughly mixed. That would be fine as well. Okay, prove algebraically that the difference between the square of any two consecutive integers is equal to the sum of these two integers. So if I prove algebraically that the difference between the squares of any two consecutive integers is equal to the sum of these two integers. So if I call the integers n and n plus 1, so those are going to be my two integers. The difference between the squares, so that's going to be n plus 1 squared minus n squared. So that would be n squared plus 2n plus 1 minus n squared. So that would be equal to 2n plus 1. And then is equal to the sum of these two digits. So if I add them together, so that would be n plus 1 is also equal to 2n plus 1. So both are equal. Okay, there we go. Really nice paper. Very good. PixiMaths have not let us down. Another fantastic resource, revision paper, predicted paper. I'm sure a number of these topics are going to hit on your paper 3. Thank you very much for your time in listening to the video. I hope you found it useful. I will chapter link all of the topics into the video. I'll do that right now. Thank you very much for your time. Good luck with your exams. Subscribe if you like.